tutorial starts with a song, but it's only a few seconds long. Let's get started with animation. This pretty amazing and aesthetically pleasing animation was done with only 2 extra nodes, the time node and the random value node. And in this tutorial I'll only show you the time node because it already does fascinating things with a otherwise static Bifrost graph preset. Let's start. New scene. And here under Windows you find the Bifrost Browser. If you don't find the Bifrost Browser, you need to go to the settings preferences, and down here in the plugin manager you need to locate it. If it's not installed, you can install it for free because it's deeply integrated into Maya. And at the end of this tutorial, so to say the second part, I'll show you a problem I had with the Bifrost Browser because it did not load things properly, and that problem I had was solved within 2 days using the Autodesk Maya area, which is an amazing forum for discussing problems which you have. So you can skip the last part if you don't have that problem anyway. I just want to demonstrate you how nice the support works. Okay, we go to the Bifrost Browser, and here we have the scatter pack, and here we have the fields. And in the fields, and I used that in a previous tutorial already in a different context, and static, not animated, now we're animating it, the flat hurricane noise. I double click it. When I press the key L, I create a layout. And if you remember from what I just showed you, the fractal noise had 2 nodes here, the random and the time node, which it does not have right now. So when we look at the scene, we see this nice fractal, and when we run the animation, nothing happens because there's no animation possibility built in, not at this stage. The fractal noise field is the central unit for creating the fractals which we see. And for example, if I change the magnitude from 1 to 5, you see that there was a change going on here. So back to 1, like this. The frequency is very critical. So a frequency of 0.3 as opposed to a frequency of 0.9. So back to 3. So the fractal noise field is the interesting field, at least the starting node where we can plug in animation, because usually in Maya you right mouse click here on magnitude, for example. I'm just right mouse clicking here, but nothing happens. I cannot add a keyframe here because this is not in the workflow of Bifrost Graph. You cannot animate things with a right mouse button. Set keyframes is impossible, or create an expression. So you need a node, and we create that node. Somewhere in the empty space, just press the tab key and type in time. And we have a time node which has no input because it's like a clock working by itself. It can output seconds, ticks, frames, or frame length. When we create a connection between the time and the fractal noise field, we can choose where we would like to make our changes happening. For example, the frequency, we just saw the frequency. It's this kind of green, and you can see the seconds, the frame, and the frame length is green as well. So we can do this, for example, go to seconds and to frequency. So we made this connection now. The plane where the fractal is happening seems to not change, but you see on this blue line here that Maya is calculating something, and now we see something happening. And of course it's getting denser and denser because the frequency is so drastically high now at frame 62, which is to 3 seconds in our animation. Let's delete that connection. After deletion, you see nothing is happening. So we can scrub back and forth, nothing is happening. That's natural because there's no animation there. Now let's go to seconds and plug it into the magnitude. The magnitude was set to 1 as a default. And now you see time in seconds is entered in this field here. This connection does this. The frequency is untouched. It's 0.3 because we unplugged that connection. So what do we see now? Let me extend the frame range to 500. When you render this frame 243, for example, you don't need a light, you just render it using Arnold. And it looks quite different, much higher resolution, smoother curves than in the viewport. This is quite an amazing image, I think. Let's get closer and render this. In another tutorial where I used this preset, I applied it to a special surface. So you don't have to stick to that plane here. Let's wrap this up. You need a time node in order to create an animation. And you can feed the time node into any entry where you have this green icon. The ticks can go into the seed because they are blue. The seed has to do with randomness in mathematics. If you want to explore this deeper, try other nodes. Tab key, for example, random. The random value node has an input. You can put things into it, but you can also just choose minimum and maximum. The minimum is set by default to 0 and the maximum to 1. But you can also feed the seconds into the minimum, for example. And then you have a maximum of 1, which restricts the value quite a bit because within a very short time you'll have reached the maximum number 1, but you can change this to maybe 100 and give it just a random number like 6 or 667, whatever. And now you feed that random node the value, the output, into the magnitude of the fractal noise field. So with this random value you get a very nervous animation, of course. But it is never the same from frame to frame, it's always different. Now when you reduce the frequency in the fractal noise field, this looks much more sober. Drastic changes. This concludes the tutorial. Now, if you're interested, I'll show you a problem I had and how it was solved in the Autodesk Maya area. I want to show you something which puzzles me. When I start with a smoke and, for example, this one or that one, and I double click it or import, I get this layout of the node system. And we have some kind of geometry in the scene, some object in the scene, and once we run that simulation, the smoke develops. This is what I'm used to from the content browser and from the Bifrost browser, that I double click something or I import something and it works, and from there I can go and create my own variations. Now when I go to the scatter pack, for example, or the geometry queries, let's start here, snow shadows. Double click. This is the graph. And in the scene, there's nothing happening. That's interesting because it's a prefab, so it should work right away. I go to the scatter pack now, and for example, Valley Forest. When I click on the tiny info icon, I see that it creates a landscape of rolling hills and puts a forest of simple cartoony trees into the valleys of that landscape. Great, I pick it, I import it, I get this Bifrost graph, and already here with all the red nodes you get lots of error messages. And nothing appears in the scene. I have the Valley Forest BIF node in my outliner, but I don't have anything in the scene. It just runs and does nothing. Maybe I find out something because I post this problem in the Autodesk Maya area. There's a Bifrost forum there, and I wonder if I get a feedback. See you later then. Well, the problem was solved. I went to the area.autodesk.com. Here you have the forums. In the forums you have Maya. You can scroll down to the Bifrost forum, because this problem was a Bifrost specific problem. And these are the moderators. Jonah Friedman developed the Rebel pack. And here is my posting. Scatter pack, that's me here. And I posted that question. I have this problem. I cannot use the Bifrost browser. And I got it solved. All right. And here is the whole discussion. I said, well, do I have to use the Rebel pack? What do I need? And then I got the hint. Send us the script editor when you load Bifrost, and that's what I posted there. And then, have you uninstalled Bifrost and installed the latest version? Yes, I had. And the Rebel pack again. And the problem was actually that in fact, a previous version of the Rebel pack was sitting on my hard drive. And even when putting it into a folder named X-Rebel pack, Bifrost obviously located it. But after I removed it from the Autodesk directory, my problem was gone. So thank you very much. And Jonah Friedman logged it as a special case. So in the future, you probably won't have this problem. Well, use that forum. I cannot answer your question. Most of the questions are so specific, which you post in the comments, that I cannot answer them. It takes me too much time, and in many cases I cannot answer them, but the Autodesk area probably can. Well, have a nice day. Bye-bye.